Let me get the headphones. We're jumping into reaction content, my friend. Slop. That's me. The grifter. Sargon, explain to me why they race swap, please. Why?
That Hollywood.
Oh my gosh, look at that. Look at that introduction right there. And they tell us it's not happening. Plus, I mean, did you guys notice? I know I'm already speaking too much. Bro, the systematic / systemic erasure of redheads is it's like redheads are the devil. Like, you have to take redheads, gorgeous, by the way. I think natural redheads are some of the most beautiful women. Redheads, and turn them all into black Africans. Like, you have to do it. It is an obsession with Hollywood and gaming industry too.
Everyone is aware that Hollywood is obsessed with race swapping their characters.
Yes.
Baffling and unartistic decisions are being made for a great loss of financial and cultural capital.
Yes.
And yet, for some reason, the powers that be insist on setting fire to their own cultural legacy. So why are they doing it?
Why are they doing it, Carl? Snow White. Ooh, we're starting strong. Let's go. Snow White, guys.
There are innumerable cases of race swapping in modern media, and one excellent example is the casting of Disney's 2025 live-action remake of Snow White.
They couldn't resist, couldn't they? I mean, a character whose name is Snow White, and I'm actually impressed they didn't turn her into actually black from Africa. I'm surprised. I'm really surprised.
Featuring Rachel Zegler, someone who was immediately criticised as not actually looking like Snow White.
It doesn't look like snow to me, does it?
Moreover, Snow White wasn't going to be acting like Snow White either.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
Look at the face! Look at the face! Ooh, the face. I need some salsa. Sun chips, non-sponsored, garden salsa. Story of my life. Salsa in the garden.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love.
Stunning and brave.
She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she were.
Leader of what? The dwarves? So is it? She's an ableist. Wow.
Is fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Incredible in the sense that we cannot believe it. Like, it's incredible.
White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign. I am.
Instead of being a story about an evil queen who becomes jealous of the beautiful girl with skin as white as snow, the story was to be about political resistance to the evil queen. And as Zegler is proud to inform us, she isn't going to be waiting to be rescued by Prince Charming.
Who the heck needs the prince, am I right?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937.
She loves saying that. I think she learned it 2 days ago, by the way. She Wikipedia'd it. 1930. Yeah, and the character is supposed to be German.
And very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah, heteronormative, one would say. Man, disgusting. Absolutely. For your information, black people can also be born with red hair. Extremely rare, I guess, but sure. You know what I mean, though. I mean, you're being pedantic, and I appreciate pedantry, but you know exactly what I mean. You know exactly what I mean.
Weird. So we didn't do that this time.
Prince or a different kind of prince?
We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie. Right. And
Unbelievable. How dead, man. I swear, she is the most unlikable. It would be the end of the species if it was just me and her on this planet. I would refuse to reproduce. I mean it. Impossible. Apart from the fact that I think it would be biologically impossible, because I don't think anything would work with that. But whatever. I'm just saying I would refuse. What? Something like this? No, it's the end of the human species. Sorry. Cyborgs, androids, aliens, greys, reptilian. I'll go with a reptilian.
Great dude. Yeah. It's one of those things that I think everyone's going to have their assumptions about what it's actually going to be, but it's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
This took the modern audience by surprise because they didn't seem to realize that they were now supposed to be supporting a political project rather than enjoying a retelling of a classic fairy tale. And the Snow White remake lost north of $100 million.
Love to see it.
It also created quite a backlash from more traditionalist-minded fans.
Oh, you mean far-right racists and bigots, right? That's recently I've been told that I'm not a bigot anymore. I'm a disgusting bigot, so I leveled up.
Who expected Snow White to actually look like Snow White, described by the brothers Grimm as having skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony.
Man, that sounds like the devil. Am I right? That sounds like the devil. How dare you? The 1937, clearly.
Rachel Zegler does not meet this description.
No.
There is, of course, nothing wrong with not looking like Snow White, unless you are specifically cast to play Snow White.
I don't know, Carl. I'm just going to be honest with you. This statement, when you say there is nothing wrong with not looking white, unless it's a race swap, meaning you don't have actually a problem with people who don't look white. I don't know, man. You're starting to say it's weird. You're supposed to be far right, like alt right, and all the rest. This might sound like you're not racist. I don't know, man. We have to be careful with these kind of words. Be careful.
Zegler was cast by Bernard Telsey and Tiffany Canfield after being given a glowing endorsement by none other than Steven Spielberg, which eventually secured her the part.
Yeah, I mean, we can now. I see why this guy ended up making that weird Alien movie. The Alien movie, guys, the Alien.
Apparently, Zegler didn't even know what film she was auditioning for, with the audition script apparently being called Untitled Disney Live-Action Film, and the characters she was reading being called Amber and Jeff. Zegler herself was confused by the...
It's unbelievable how I'm going to speed him up a little bit, but it is unbelievable. He's too posh, so he needs to be sped up a little bit. But I'm going to say this. It's unbelievable, sorry, how this kind of insane feminist positions modify people's facial expressions to a point that their smiles are obnoxious. Did you notice that? I noticed it happens also. I thought it was in conjunction with the nose ring as it, works with the muscles, but maybe not because she doesn't have the septum ring. So it must be something that projects from the mind into the way the facial expression manifests itself into the external reality. Because I swear, I'm annoyed. I find this smile condescending. Incredible.
Casting backlash of the film, and nobody responsible for these decisions appears to have come to her aid. Like most actors, Zegler became the face of the film, and instead of coaching or stewarding her through the concerns, she was just left to twist in the wind over it, making careless and ill-advised statements without understanding the scope of the ire that she was inciting.
Yeah.
Indeed, she seems to have become quite widely reviled because of her attitude, and the woke nonsense coming out of her public appearances probably damaged the film's earning potential.
I'm telling you this as well. I agree with everything you said so far. One thing I want to say, the reason why she thought she could get away with it, meaning
Disney eventually banned her and her co-stars from even doing red carpet interviews because they'd become so damaging to the brand. It's worth remembering that Zegler is only 24 years old and has been...
She acts like a 12-year-old.
Not of her own making, and clearly beyond her...
Sorry, to finish my point earlier, because I know I didn't finish the point. My point was, she was expecting for a lot of people to appreciate her and support her position. What these people don't know is that there is a lot of people who are normal. There is plenty of people who are not even political and find this annoying. Not to mention the fact that it's unidirectional, right? The race swapping, which is unjust. And so that's what these people misjudge. They don't know how many people are out there that think this is bullshit, actually. And I think this was a wake-up call up to a certain extent. But not that she will understand it. Zero self-awareness. She's just think, oh, there are more racists and bigots out there. That's how she's gonna... So she's not gonna learn anything. But hopefully the whatever $100 million crash is gonna teach them a lesson, hopefully.
Understanding. It seems she doesn't know what the problem is, what she is being used for, nor did anyone seem to prepare her for the kind of public hostility that she will likely be burdened with for the rest of her life. I don't feel that it's fair for the people who took advantage of Zegler's naivete on the political issues surrounding her casting to just throw her to the wolves, to be honest.
Well, yeah, that's a very fair take. I actually appreciate. What's normal? Normal is someone who isn't radicalized. That's what normal is, in my opinion. Like a normal human being, you can have your positions, your ideas, and they can be different. But at least you're acting like a normal person, because the kind of nonsense that people like her push, it's for the radicalized, it's for the brainwashed, it's for the cultists. There we go. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this woman of color.
The issue is that there is a struggle happening here to which Zegler is not really privy, and seems to have been used as something of a pawn. Snow White is a cultural possession of the Northwest Europeans. It is a 19th century German fairy tale.
Yes, German.
Zegler herself is Eastern European and Colombian, and it is a beloved story, and people generally feel very attached to the popular myths that form a part of their cultural heritage.
100%. And anyone who says that that's not legitimate, oh, you need to be inclusive and diverse, they would never say it to the local population of Nigeria or Sudan if someone was trying to, you know, whitewash their casting, and they would say, but this means a lot to us, people of Sudan, or people of Nigeria, or people of Congo, like Helen. And the reality is that, yeah, of course. And then they will be like, oh, yes, white supremacy is attacking you. It's so easy to debunk these people like Ziegler.
When they are misrepresented in such a heavy-handed and vindictive way, they tend to feel that their cultural heritage attack by subversive forces within the movie industry, and that's because it is.
Not to mention there is it's on top it's like superimposing different layers. It's not just a race. She also tried to make Snow White into a feminist icon, and at the same time push misandry. So it's like it's on multiple levels.
Against the traditional European culture of the West is set a levelling ideology which seeks to deconstruct the unexamined premises upon which our culture rests.
Totally.
This ideology uses a hostile critique to discredit, dismantle, and disempower the stories that acted at once as both moral instruction and a bonding agent for our society. We will examine one aspect of this ideology in detail. I
do agree with him. I think it's a very well-organized video. The fact that such a well-structured video is this long, it means he must have put a lot of production into this one. I appreciate it. But one thing is, I don't think it's just... The reason why they're doing this, in my opinion, the whole race swapping, is to virtue signal. That's one thing. Look at me, I'm so... I hate my own people, white people, now you like me for it. There's that. Look at me, how anti-racist I am. So anti-racist, I'm okay if you delete my entire culture and whatever. So there's that. But I think it's also a preparation for the waves of millions of migrants. I think that's what it is. It's a preparation of the waves, mentally. Because they tell you, we've always been here, look... Because they change the history. It's not just the mythology, it's not just the legends, it's not just the stories, it's also the history. And so by swapping everything, now they do push and say Vikings were transgender Muslims. I have 2 videos debunking that. And then the Vikings were not white, and Anglo-Saxons did not exist. In fact, they removed the words. And they do this all for the specific purpose, in my opinion, of making you more receptive to the kind of immigration that they have, in fact, exposed Europe to. And Japan is resisting, and Japan is based.
Philosophy of representation.
What's next? The left's philosophy of representation. Okay. Man, what a video. Yes, I'm
There is a long-standing view in philosophy that goes all the way back to Plato and Aristotle that art is a representation of reality, and therefore stories are bound by their own internal logic as a projection of the hypothetical reality they are intended to construct. A good story is many things: creative, entertaining, compelling, relatable, consistent. But one overlooked aspect of a good story is that it is didactic, in that it instructs us on the practical and moral lessons.
Yeah, that means that it teaches you
of the story without us having to have lived through them.
Yes.
The premises of the story construct the artificial world we inhabit for its duration, and this representation can be used to inform us about aspects of the real world of which we would otherwise be unaware. In this way, stories become part of the diffusion of knowledge and time-tested wisdom throughout a culture. This is why classic stories persist and are beloved from generation to generation.
Man, look
The
at that
lessons
armor.
they teach are perennial and unaffected by changes in time, place, or technology, because they
And they're changing those lessons from look at this protective man who loves the girl and does everything and fights evil, and then they love each other and they have a beautiful nuclear family, traditional marriage and everything. They take all of that away and they change it into I don't need no man.
They speak to the enduring character of the human soul and the proper nature of the relationships which bind us together, at least for our culture.
Yeah.
It also leads us to become possessive of these formative narratives. We think of them in some way as core to who we are, and we enjoy passing on the value that they held to us to future generations.
Interesting.
This is usually an organic phenomenon. It was not by design that in Germany that Goethe's Faust, or in England that Tolkien's Lord of the Rings became national cultural touchstones. These stories spoke to a shared set of pre-existing moral sentiments, which resonated with the people who enjoyed them and became cherished cultural institutions as a result.
Right.
What we can derive from the theory behind storytelling and representation, then, is that stories contain power and have some influence over people individually and entire societies more broadly.
100%.
It is not a direct hard power, but more a persuasive soft power that unintrusively influences the worldview of a people and subtly informs their decisions. These cumulative choices help determine the character of the civilization and the people who carry it. The stories that we produce have the character that they have because
good King Arthur. Man, look at this. You know what? I need to print this and then have it as a tapestry on one of my walls in my medieval armory. Yes, one of my rooms is a medieval armory. I'm still working on the wooden shelving unit and whatnot, but guys, it's happening. It's happening. Because this room is more like vintage tech, the one where I film. But there is another one over there. There is another one over there. Man, I need this. I need this tapestry. Why did you do this to me, Carl? I just had a baby and now you're making me gonna spend money in this. This is incredible, though. You know what it reminds me of? Knights of the Round for Super Nintendo. Look it up. Amazing game.
they are a reflection of the people who tell and enjoy them, and shape future generations in turn.
Yeah.
Left-wing philosophers understand all of this and realized that if they could intercede in this natural course of events, then perhaps they could wield this soft power to change the world according to their own ideological disposition. I think that we can look at 4 different philosophers and tie their work together to properly understand why this is all happening.
Okay.
Why the left is obsessed with race swapping. While under arrest by Mussolini's fascist government, Italian Marxist thinker Antonio Gramsci had paper smuggled into his cell, and to pass the time, he wrote down his reflections on politics, philosophy, and revolution.
Man, I wasn't expecting this one to go into actual history and historical analysis of fascismo. The Italian came out of fascism and Marxism. That's insane.
These papers were posthumously published under the name The Prison Notebooks. In them, he makes many observations from the perspective of a failed communist revolutionary on intellectuals, philosophy, the problems of Marxism, power politics, Italian history, and American ideology. But the point of particular interest for leftist intersectionalism are Gramsci's thoughts on the relationship between the state and civil society. He distinguished between 2 kinds of intellectuals in society that he called traditional intellectuals and organic intellectuals.
And we're going to see what this difference is. But I'm going to say what's funny is that if you could resurrect any of these historical leftists, they would think that the woke stuff that's happening, it's nonsense. And you know how I know that? Well, my own cousin, who is a member... Let's just say that I have 2 cousins that are very, very, very far left. We love each other. It doesn't matter, but we can't speak politics. It is what it is. It is what it is. But he's a great guy. He's very generous. Imagine that. He's a far left atheist, and I'm a center right Christian. But we get along, you know. That's actually, it could be a good message, I suppose. Because again, he's like a brother to me. What's funny though is that he absolutely hates woke nonsense. He hates it. So it's like we're playing a game together, and then something insane happens that you know what it is, like the swaps and this and that, and then he looks at it, like even Street Fighter 6, he saw the beginning and he uninstalled it, and I'm like, so this guy who's basically a communist, he tells me, hey, I uninstalled, what is all of this woke nonsense? And I told him, spoken like a true right-winger. Spoken like a true right-winger. He laughs when I say that. But bro, This is the reality. Sometimes it doesn't even feel like left in the sense of like someone like, what's his name? Hassan Piker is dressed in Gucci and pretends to be a spokesperson for class struggle and proletariat. I can't have it. I can't have it. And neither could the historical leftists. It's like ridiculous.
Traditional intellectuals are in some way a part of the structures of the state, and therefore find themselves unconsciously aligned with its preservation and advancement. Priests, teachers, scholars, administrators, lawyers, anyone who works with their mind in an institution helps promote the ideological hegemony of the state.
Right.
Hegemony is a key concept.
I guess then anarchists would hate that. Do you guys think anarchy, because traditionally we consider anarchy as a far left position, is it? I mean, maybe far left, but if you look at two different, not that I want to go into political science right now and whatever, but I was just saying, because normally we think in terms of left-right, which already is kind of, sometimes I'm feeling that's not sufficient with how much diversity of thought there is there, even within political ideas. But whatever, we usually think of left-right, and then we use the second axis as authoritarian, libertarian. This idea that it's strange because communists, like historical communists like Stalin, clearly far left authoritarian. But anarchy is the opposite of authoritarian state. Anarchy is like, what, the extreme libertarian end of the axis? It is strange though, because in America, usually, like, conservatism is for small government. So how is that opposite to anarchy if that's left? Because in America, it wants big state. Usually left is kind of a bigger government idea. That's why, I mean, oftentimes left, right, up, down, and all these discussions are not really apt. They're like an approximation. Because, yeah, anarchy is no government. But it's like you say, it's a centrist position. Is it, though? Because oftentimes at least usually it's considered left-wing. But then again, of course, it wouldn't work. That in theory, anarchists should not like something like authoritarian left, such as, the USSR and that kind of stuff. It is confusing because I think it's not apt. It's an approximation. That's what it is. It is an approximation. That's why oftentimes when we talk about political labels, if you like, for instance, there are people in the comments that share my political ideas, but then sometimes they say something, I'm like, I disagree with that. And then there are people in the comments who, some of you sometimes tell me I'm left of center. So in theory, we disagree. But then you tell me you hate the race swapping, and I'm like, okay, then we agree on that one, which tells you that oftentimes when we say one label, in reality, it comes with a baggage that it's not always complete. I don't take the whole baggage. I have my own ideas on certain aspects, and I prefer to have like a little bit of, yeah, so that's what happens with labels oftentimes.
For Gramsci, and he uses it to mean moral, cultural, and intellectual leadership.
Okay.
It explains how the powers that be manufacture consent from the general population.
Manufacture consent from the general population.
Ideological dominion of the state determines what passes as common sense for society. The state maintains its hegemony by use of its traditional intellectuals, and in Gramsci's view, only the organic intellectuals, that is, intellectuals who arise from particular class circumstances without loyalty to the current hegemony, can find themselves able to resist it.
That's an interesting point, because if you think about it, unfortunately, while there were plenty of intellectuals, and some of which were extremely brave, who did write and go against the powers at play during the 20th century with the totalitarian regimes, such as, fascist Italy, Nazi Germany, and communist Russia and whatnot, and the rest. But the reality is, and oftentimes that was very brave, and some ended up in concentration camps. But the thing is that there were plenty of intellectuals and academics that supported it, supported the regimes, and bent the knee. And I see this happening a lot today. Like, there are a lot of people who belong to the academic class that push nonsense, even if it goes against the very science that they should be pushing, that they should be following. So the idea of logics, reason, and evidence-based data analysis. They will pretend that's not a thing because they need to push the message. In my opinion, their PhDs should be stripped. And I've responded to quite a few. They should lose their positions. They should lose their position. I don't want government intervention because I'm pro-free speech. But I do want repercussions for people who betray the public trust when they have positions that then have to do with the shaping of our new generations and the way they think. Because a lot of university these days, not, of course, if you do like engineering, if you do like these kind of like very scientific hard science, it's less affected. But when you go into areas where you're literally teaching kids within the social sciences, for instance, you're teaching kids what to think instead of how to think, then that's when you're going to have a problem with me, and you are betraying public trust. That's what I think. And it is what it is. I want to see if it, because I noticed that on the thumbnail he showed Little Mermaid, and there is one thing in there. He doesn't actually go into the Little Mermaid, but I do want to say this when it comes to the Little Mermaid, guys, because they're going to gaslight you. They tell you, I've seen people saying that while with Snow White, they can't say she wasn't meant to be white, because, I mean, come on. But with the Mermaid, they did try that. Did you see it? With the Little Mermaid, I don't know if Carl Benjamin saw this, but with the Little Mermaid, they told us, well, in the original Danish story, she had green skin. So why are you talking about historical accuracy when we race swap it? I checked it. The description in the original language says, as she reaches her white, beautiful arms towards the boat. Oh. Not only white, but why? Well, because it was made in Scandinavia. Who gets more white than that? So obviously they're gonna describe. It says that. Oh, really? You say yes, my friend. It's how it's described. Never mind. There is something green with her body, but it's not the entire body. And the arms and the hands, they are both described as white and beautiful. Oh. Most people are socially and politically somewhere in the center, but ideologies put on force people to be on one side or the other. I would agree with that. There is a lot of left-leaning and right-leaning. There is a lot of leaning. I put myself in there. I'm a leaning person. As a redhead, that's the one that pissed me off the most. Of course, because of the systematic erosion of gingers. It's a fact. I don't care if they say no. Every video game, I was playing Diablo 2, the remake, which is a pretty decent game, but every redhead has been swapped, removed, completely gone. If you have red hair, chances are your character is gone. I don't know why. I haven't got a clue why.
Gramsci then took this understanding and applied it to the question of why communist revolutions have succeeded in the East, but had failed in the West. He came to the conclusion that it is because civil society had different reactions to the state's institutions and ideological hegemony in each region. As he put it, in the East, the state was everything. Civil society was primordial and gelatinous. In the West, there was a proper relation between the state and civil society.
You know what's interesting about this? Fascist ideology is anti-individualistic. So, in fact, that's one thing that fascists have in common with USSR, Russia, and the Stalin, any form of totalitarian regime, the Nazis. It's always the anti-individual position. The individual means nothing. The individual can accrue wealth, but only if it also benefits the state. There is no such a thing as an individual without the state. The state always gets primacy and priority. And I'm not saying this, these are literally the words of the doctrine of fascism by Benito Mussolini and Giovanni Gentile. There is no individual. Everything is the state. It's not big government when it comes to fascism. It's gigantic government.
And when the state trembled, a sturdy structure of civil society was at once revealed. The state was only an outer ditch, behind which there stood a powerful system of fortresses and earthworks.
Okay.
If the organic intellectuals were going to conduct a revolution in the West, it could not be done via a frontal attack. Whilst this might have worked in Eastern countries, where the people were oppressed by a tyrannical state and therefore would not render it aid in its time of need, this would not work here. The people of the West liked their countries and their institutions. They agreed with the ruling class's view of common sense and would spontaneously fight to defend the state against the revolutionaries.
You know, this is an interesting point that he's bringing up, mostly because I'm thinking the annihilation of patriotism is one of the things that at least the major players, when it comes to, you know, what's happening, this cultural revolution, you can call it culture war as much as you want. I think it's a cultural revolution more than a cultural war. This idea of destroying patriotism and how many people are self-loathing? I hate self-loathing. I think that the people that annoy me the most are self-loathing whites. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's it. It's just it's the people that, because it feels like a betrayal. It feels like just stand up and have a spine. Because I would never want, like, if an Asian person, a black, a native from any other place, told me that they hate their own race, I would tell them why. What, there is good and bad in every people. I wouldn't want them to do that. And that's what's crazy, is that it's a targeted attack. So in a way, it is an attack from the inside. If you are gonna convince people, I don't know what kind of tether. I mean, I'm not versed enough in this kind of political, like what's represented here that Carl is explaining to us. I'm not versed enough to find the tether with what happened in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, I suppose. But one thing I will say is that if you convince a people to think that it is good to self-loathe, then they won't defend themselves. That is a very good point, and I never thought about it. But they won't defend their people, they won't defend their own. And I mean, I've seen insane TikTokers, and I know TikToker is not a representation. I mean, it's TikTok, it's brain rot. But I've seen people on TikTok, white women on TikTok with blue hair, saying that, oh, if for instance, if black people, KILLED, us all, I would understand it. Now, I get it, it's most likely it's a virtual signal. But at the same time, really? This is insane. And self-loathing, in a way, makes sense when you frame it like this. It makes sense that they want the West to self-loathe, because then you'll take down the borders, and you will not defend your people, and you will not defend your state, you won't defend the country. They make you hate the family, which is the core and foundational pillar of the civilization. It is a cultural revolution, that's what I think. But Metatron, you always talk about the same things. There you go. We changed the shot for a moment. I want to move the camera back where it's supposed to be, but look at this. It's actually not a bad shot, because you can see how freaking long this room is, and it's kind of nice. Kind of gives me a nice backdrop, doesn't it? For a change. All right, enough. Don't get too excited. Let's get back to the regular camera shot in 3, 2, 1. In summary, please. Let's go.
In summary, then, the failed communist revolutionaries and their modern descendants, the intersectional critical race theorists, are still pursuing the old goal of overthrowing the state, but have realized that they must attack and demoralize the majority white society upon which it rests, in order to not only immiserate the white population, but in turn create new conditions for the non-white population, so they may be equalized.
Yeah, I mean, that demoralize... I'm not saying I don't believe that one of the reasons why all the race swap is happening is with the objective of demoralizing. But I'll be honest with you, I probably have to address it after like some careful thought, where I sit down and I see why it doesn't seem to make sense in my head. What do I mean by that? I mean that I think it's worse than that. I think demoralizing is not enough. I think they just want to try and physically replace, remove, eliminate. I don't think it's just, to me, maybe it's a word choice, because I've heard people in the comments saying they want to demoralize us. Demoralize doesn't sound right. Also because, as you see, the reaction to race swaps, it's either you accept it because you've been indoctrinated, in fact you think it's based and true, in which case, of course, even if you're white, now you're fighting against your own. So in that perspective, of course, when we're looking at a typical self-loathing white in the West, that's a reprogramming rather than a demoralization. And when it comes to a demoralization for the other people, well, we fight back. We hate it. We cringe. That doesn't really demoralize. It makes people more combative. So I'm not a huge fan of the idea of, oh, they do it to demoralize the West, to demoralize white people. No, I think it's a lot worse than that. It's reprogramming on the people that works, and for the people that doesn't work, I guess the hope is that they can replace us. So they're not replacing necessarily all white people, but replace the ones that don't accept the message. And the ones that get that was, so the initial intent of the race swap is reprogramming. At least that's how I see it.
This desire for equality is the very bedrock of liberal ideology, believing that all men are created, isolated, and equal. And the communist is using the subtle and soft power of representation in media to help bring this equality about. This is not done in a vacuum, of course. It is in tandem with all of the other aspects of the revolution which are constantly going on all around us.
Okay.
Calls for wealth taxes, increased welfare spending, and reparations are part of the economic war on a free people. Anti-discrimination legislation, hate speech laws, and suppression of free speech are all part of the legal war on a free people, and so on and so on. Representation is a part of the cultural dimension of this war.
Good point. Yeah, good point. Media as a stratagem. Man, what a video.
We can see, therefore, that the left approaches media not just critically, but also tactically. They view any engagement with media as an engagement with an enemy fortification, a power play, and a method by which to capture a generative engine of culture by which they might create the world anew. This is what media literacy is, the reinterpretation of traditional cultural artifacts in order to take them away from the people who feel they possess them. Engagement with any media is not neutral in their eyes.
Right.
Controlling the production of media is controlling the things you're allowed to think.
That's correct. I think controlling the way we think is in fact more applicable to academia, school, from, again, university all the way down to elementary school and in fact kindergarten at this point shapes the way you think. When it comes to trying to exert control over the media, whether it be video games or movies, I mean, that's, like, I gotta be fair, that is not only the left. The right also tends to, for instance, with the entirety boycotting or don't buy non-binary spelled B-U-Y, we also try to exert control over the media. But then again, up to this point, I personally haven't seen a single video game, but please correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen a single video game that is pushing right-wing talking points. And if I'm wrong, I'm willing to be corrected. So imagine that you're left-wing, you're watching this, and you tell me, no, of course, well, don't you know about, well, tell me in the comments. Because all I see these days are video games that are apolitical and video games that push left-wing messaging. I don't see video games that push right-wing messaging, like an entire video about an entire video game, for example, where you play as ICE agents trying to kick out illegals. That would be a right-wing piece of video game, right? With where you play and then the bad guys are all these illegal aliens and the good guys are the ICE. They don't exist. I personally haven't seen it. So in that sense, then the way the left approaches media is different, yes.
The kind of person that you are, and therefore the kind of actions that you will take. They are under the impression that they can soothe the poor behavior of certain minority communities through this kind of propaganda, and balm any wounds through the projection of the world not as it is, but as they would like it to be. In this way, they will slowly but surely improve the lot of minority communities and reduce the power of the white community. Moreover,
that is definitely one of the main objectives of progressivism.
They will tell us this directly, on the understanding that you don't know what to look for to properly understand their message. Watch this video from the BBC, published in 2020,
Let's see.
with all of what I have said so far in mind, and see if you can now properly understand what they're talking about.
All over the world, in every country and every culture, storytelling has significant power. The stories that we are told via books, our screens and advertising build identities, determine behaviours and forge our dreams. American researchers found that stories repeated in our minds actually interact with our biology. Our brains need shortcuts to simplify and organise information and data constantly coming at us. They impact how we view the world and make meaning from what we perceive.
Which, yeah, of course. I mean, we already knew this, but it's interesting that the BBC, of all places, decided to say this, since it's quite clear that it's been used to do just that, in conjunction with academia and school.
The narrative we tell and are told has the potential to create and continue prejudiced beliefs by those few who dominate the storytelling sphere.
Of course, including prejudice against white people.
So, what dangerous ways has this materialised itself in the media and advertising? The The British Film Institute found that between 2006 and 2016, of around 45,000 roles credited to actors in the UK, only 0.5% were played by black British actors. Not seeing yourself represented often leads to self-imposed limitations on what you can achieve and allows
That's how they tried to spin it.
the negative perceptions to go unchallenged.
Be that as it may, swapping white people is not the solution now, is it? If you want to see more black people on screen so that they don't feel limited, then tell black stories. We have said this so many times. It's exhausting at this point.
And what we can dream.
As you doubtless noticed, that BBC video hit every beat
True.
that I have laid out here.
True.
The meritocratic, colourblind liberal society of whiteness is interpolating black people in a particular way according to the common stereotypes and social roles with which they had been traditionally associated, which in turn reinforces those roles and reproduces them in the oppressed black community.
Right.
The author argues that we should instead broaden the scope of what we believe to be the case so that further identities can be developed to help the black community break out of these stereotypes. The method of delivery of this message,
And they, of course, have to do it with race swapping, right? They have to.
was through the ideological state apparatus of the BBC, which is attempting to overthrow the ideological hegemony of white British society to produce different results, not just in the minds of the storytellers, but in the black community itself through the production of different narratives by which this community is expected to live their lives. So why are they race-swapping characters? The answer is that they think they are saving minority communities by using the power of representation in stories to change their fundamental nature, while at the same time overthrowing the oppressive white overculture.
No, it's just the other one. Personally, the first one I think is your position. You're overimposing, Carl. I'll have to disagree with this one. They don't think they're saving minorities from themselves. That's not how they view it. I don't believe that's how they view it. That's how probably you view it. Or maybe not. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. Or maybe how you view them viewing it. There we go. That's what I mean. But I don't see that. I just don't. I think that they are pushing all of that because they want white to accept any non-white, no matter the cost, no matter the losses, no matter if they're good people or criminals, no matter if they come in the millions, no matter if they are illegal, no matter if they're taking something from you, no matter whatever. They want to accept because at the end of the day, I think it is connected to voting. Because at the end of the day, minorities tend to vote left. Tend to. And so there is something there that they can manipulate in order to, and that in combination with they are indoctrinating your own kids so that then the kids grow up, even if you are a conservative household and you don't know what your kid is being exposed to at school by these activist teachers, and then the media and video games and the movies with all the messaging and they, them and this and that. At the end of the day, they grow up. By the time they are ready to vote, they are voting for the other side. And so it's all about power. That's what I think. I don't believe this is it. I think it's all about power. Power. That's it. We will be in power. In 20 years, we breed you out. And when I say you, I mean people who don't think like we want. That's the reality. And that's probably why they hate so much the white, straight, Christian man of the West. Because a lot of white, straight, Christian men vote for the other side. And this is all about power. That's the real replacement. It's a replacement of vote.
Because they think that they are saving the world for minorities, it becomes evident why no cost is too great for them to bear, and why they are prepared to just eat the financial losses for as long as they possibly can.
Yep.
They are revolutionaries on a moral mission, and have captured the state apparatuses of the West, turning them from their actual stated purposes, whether that be education, entertainment, security, industry, or whatever, and have redirected them to the purpose of equality, which is why everything is getting worse while representation has never been better. We can pick almost any of these institutions at random and see them explain in the exact terms that I have laid out here why they're doing it. For example, let's pick Action for Children, a huge British charity that takes £150 million a year, and let's hear them tell us why we need representation. In the past and to this day, portrayals of black, Asian, and minority ethnic people have often created or reinforced harmful stereotypes. Such stereotypes promote a narrow understanding of those communities.
And so you break the stereotype by swapping them for a white guy? An historical white guy. Oh, you got stereotypes about black people. So let's just say that Julius Caesar was black. Did that break the stereotype? Fucking losers.
This has the knock-on effect of contributing to real-life racism and discrimination. Representation matters because what we see in the media doesn't just reflect reality, it also shapes it.
Yeah, see, they say
On the
it.
other hand, positive representation can shift public opinion for the better and create greater understanding and appreciation between cultures and communities. UK media is not fully representative of the cultures and ethnicities that make up our population, especially at senior levels. Children and young people...
Remember, this is all false. Not what Carl is saying, what Carl is exposing. This is all false. It's not true. They don't care about combating racism. If anything, they're creating 10 times fold the amount of racism because of the targeted attacks against white people that then defensively become more racist. It's just what happens. Or just are fed up and start doing things, even if they're not racist, they start saying stuff that is racist just because they can't stand the injustice. They don't care about all of this. They just care about the power of vote. They want to be in power and they want to stay in power for as long as possible. And they have devised this way to shape public opinion at the expenses of justice and truth.
People are still developing their sense of who they are. The media they consume plays a role in how they view themselves.
Right.
A lack of representation can lead to children from ethnic minority backgrounds feeling invisible or unimportant. We can hear the voices of Gramsci, Althusser, Taylor and Hall coming through this short paragraph. They truly believe it.
Little Mermaid. Man, you know what? For the Little Mermaid, like, this is a very long video and I've already been going on for a while. And the Little Mermaid itself is like, it's long. So I'm going to divide it into pieces. But this is into, we got Cleopatra. Yeah. So we will continue this on part 2. For today, we're going to stop here. But thank you for watching. Pretty good video. There were a few disagreements, but then again, these could be in fact interesting for a podcast to discuss. With that being said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for the next upload. Have a good one. If you appreciate my content so far and wish to help ensure my ability to continue to tell it how it is, regardless of any possible backlash, please support this channel on Patreon. Any support helps me and my team of academics keep the channel strong and gives us the means to fight back against the political rewriting of history. Stand with us, form the wall, defend the truth.